But in the meantime, let's start looking at some stuff. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different this week. I am going to give you links to videos. And what we'll do is we'll all mute, myself included, and we'll turn off our cameras. We'll watch the link, and then when we're done, we'll come back, we'll turn our cameras back on to indicate that we're done watching, and then we'll discuss as a group. But for the first video, actually, I want to control it a little bit more. So I'm going to screen share. Let me just pull it up. Oops, this is the wrong one. So what I want to think about this week, now that you all have at least started making your animations, what I want to think about is how to do sound design for those animations. And in order to do that, I want to think about sound and the importance of sound. So one thing we can do, did we do this already? Maybe we did, but I think it's worth doing again, actually. One thing that we can do is we can just listen and hear what's in our environment. If we're all just quiet right now, and actually this should be quite interesting because I've never done this with people who are all in different environments. So take a moment and let's all just be quiet and think about every single sound that you can hear around you. Try to make a little mental list and then we'll compare. Oh, I'm gonna mute myself so you don't hear my sounds. Okay. Anyone want to share? What did you hear during your sound experiment? In theory, we weren't making any noise. So what are the sounds of your environment?
Okay, I guess I'll start. There's a drone from the fan and like a droning sound from the fan in my bathroom. There's message notifications from my mother's laptop, which I can hear from my room, and hammering. I don't know where it's coming from, but there's hammering.
Okay, great. Anyone else want to do it? What did you hear? Sunny, go ahead. Oops, sorry.
You go, so. Okay, sorry, Julia. I have my window open so I can hear birds, I can hear traffic, I can hear the wind really clearly, and I can very faintly hear construction. Mostly it's a car like beep, beep, beeping as it backs up.
Great. Julie, do you want to go now?
Yeah, mine is also construction. I've got my AC behind me so I can hear through that. And it's like a faint whistling wind sound because I'm on a hill. And then there's men yelling and cars driving down the street. And then my dad is talking in his meeting downstairs.
Yeah, I was surprised not a lot of family noise because what I hear mostly is my daughter saying up, up, up. And I actually could hear my husband clean his ear at one point while we were listening. Our apartment is small. Anyone else want to go? Yeah, Liz, go ahead.
Well, my mom is cooking in the kitchen right now, and so the fan or the stove is on.
Mhm.
There's some clattering of like pots and stuff, and she's also singing.
Cute.
She's pretty good at it, to be fair.
That helps. Diana, were you about to say something?
Yeah, so I can hear my brother's class going on upstairs, and then my mom is watching television downstairs, and then I can hear my air conditioning. So, yeah.
Okay. So I think we can all see that even when things are so quote unquote quiet, when we're not making noise, not playing a video, I'm not yammering at you, nonetheless, there are all kinds of environmental sounds, right? And when we're working with animation in particular, none of those sounds are there, right? There's just nothing, there's silence to start with. So when we're working with animation, we have to think about building up those sounds and layering them and bringing things to life through those sounds. Okay, so let's start looking at some stuff. I'm gonna share my desktop for a second so I can show you this one really quick video. This is a little piece that I really like. It's Mixed Grill by Tara Sin. And I'm gonna play it for you once. It's just 30 seconds. I'm gonna play it for you once without sound. And I want you to try to imagine what the sound is. And then we'll see if we can figure out what that sound is. Okay. So, any thoughts? What sound do you imagine goes with this video?
A meow.
Okay, so that's like what would naturally go along with the video, right? That's what we expect to hear out of cats' mouths. I think you can all probably figure out that because I'm asking, it's not just a meow, right? So what do you think is the twist?
Isn't like some of the footage of the cats meowing like reversed or something? Like it's kind of like a boomerang effect. So maybe the cat is like meowing backwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like the audio is backwards.
yep, that's a really good observation. Any other guesses? You ready for the big reveal? Okay. Actually, I think I have to. Oh, okay, there we go. Where are my volume controls? There we go. I know how to use a computer. Everything's fine. And okay, here we go. One more time with sound. Okay. So how does that change the experience of watching the video, hearing what the sound actually is?
Kind of makes it funnier, I feel like.
Definitely makes it funnier.
Like
Right.
it's like it kind of subverts expectation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anyone else? In the past, I've heard people say things like, "Oh, they're kind of like almost intimidating, right? There are these little pussy cats, and then all of a sudden they're like meow, meow, meow." Almost like lions, right? And that's of course where the humor comes in. It's that this like little like mew 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 that we're so used to is actually this like really deep sound. And Liz, I was really impressed that you noticed that some of the video was going backwards, and so you can kind of actually, if you're paying really close attention to the visuals, you can tell that really the sound is just slowed down just like the video is. And one thing I really like about this video is that it's extremely simple gesture, right? It's appropriated footage of cats in a studio, and really the only thing that's happened is like she slowed everything down and reversed some pieces, and yet that gesture is totally transformative of that original footage. Okay, anyone else want to comment or have any questions about the piece? Fairly straightforward piece, but nonetheless. Okay, so now I want to try this watching videos on our own and then coming back together thing. This video actually happens to be in 2 parts. Let me get the link. I have everything. Normally I do a presentation. So why don't we watch these 2, oops, I'm sorry, it started playing. Why don't we watch these 2 parts all at once, and then we'll come together and discuss. So let me give you both links before you go away. Sorry.
For us also
Blah, blah,
at
blah.
Pixar that we
Quiet you. And so what this is it's a short documentary specifically about the sound for WALL-E and how the sound design was done for that film. So what I want you to do while you're watching it is I want you to think about the kind of different principles that Bert, what is his name? Anyway, I'll watch it along with you. Obviously, I need a refresher. I want you to think about the different principles that he kind of suggests, the ways to add realism and to make an animation, sound animation really work and function. So let's all go ahead. So make sure you're muted, everybody's muted, so that shouldn't be a problem. And go ahead and turn off your camera. And then when you're done watching, just so I know you're done watching, turn your cameras back on and we'll talk about it together.
Every sound designer is asked to create some sort of a world in sound. And it's most inspiring when the whole movie essentially requires an original new world of sound. From the background sounds, the ambiances, the wind, the storms, the hum inside a spaceship, as well as the mechanical sounds of motors and robot arms and legs and treads.
The big thing that's unique about sound design and animation is the fact that you get nothing for free. You don't get on a set and hear the way the environment sounds naturally, or the way somebody walks across a room, or just their voice. WALL-E. But in this case, because there isn't dialogue that often, it puts all this emphasis on every little squeak, beep, squawk. Now they all have to mean something. Or you have to be careful that if you use them, people will think they mean something.
The sound that Eve and WALL-E made, that was their character. That was how people were going to connect to them.
Ooh. So you have to be in complete control about whether there should be sound and what sounds they are and how many they are and when they happen.
You learn that the most important thing that you can do as a sound designer is to make the right choice for the right sound at the right moment in a film.
Ben Burtt is an Academy Award-winning sound designer who did his very first work on the first Star Wars movies. And in many ways, he's considered the father of modern sound design.
There are these iconic sounds that everybody knows.
And you meet Ben, and it's like meeting your 7th grade science teacher. He is your 7th grade science teacher. He is the guy that you're like, can you explain to me how gravity works? And he will sit down and explain it to you in a way that you completely understand it using sound effects.
I wanted to create a sound for Eve's laser gun in her arm. And I discovered years ago that if you strike a slinky-like spring with any object, you don't just get a clunk on the pickup mic or a ping, you get a pew. That happens because the high frequencies travel faster than the low frequencies. So if you listen to the sound far away down the wire, the high frequencies get there first, and then the sort of mid frequencies and the low frequencies. So you get, it's a laser gun. Most of my experience in creating sound has been in an era when you can go outside with a small portable tape recorder and gather sounds in the real world. But I've always been fascinated by the roots of sound design for movies, which really goes back to the days when devices were built to create all kinds of sounds. Disney had an artist with them for many, many years named Jimmy McDonald. And over the years, he and his team built hundreds of props which were used to create sounds in the Disney cartoons. The Disney style was to use musical sounds for sound effects. If a character impacts on the wall, that hit on the wall will probably be a cymbal crash, or maybe it's a funny timpani drum being struck. If somebody zipped across the frame, you might hear a whistle or a flute. And it worked well because those kinds of musical sounds could be controlled in the studio. Recording equipment in the earliest days was very bulky. You couldn't take it outside and go on location to record a train. And so the artists at Disney would simulate the sound right there in the studio. These gadgets could be played as if they were musical instruments, and the timing of the sounds could be tailored to exactly match the picture.
This is a rain machine. I have it just loaded in there with little finishing nails, nailed all on strips, and then a couple hands full of Mexican peas. And by rotating it slowly, you'll get the rain sound. And then get some high-pitched squeaks by getting close.
Great. Fortunately, this collection has been preserved by Joe Harrington, sound mixer and sound designer at Walt Disney Imagineering. So I had the opportunity to get a fantastic tour.
This is a classic piece of gear. Twist this clockwise, kind of fast.
Okay.
That was an old machine gun. Drawbridge chains. Hold that in your hand and pull that back.
Okay. Oh yeah, screen door.
Yeah.
Right. Now see, I would have gone out and tried to find a screen door. You're going to a lot of trouble, driven somewhere, waited till it was quiet, but here it is right here. Fabulous. It's only been in recent years that I've kind of rediscovered the value of trying to stage or construct a device that you can control. In the earliest days of live action film and animation, if they needed wind, they would use a wind machine. And you can go fast and you can go slow, or you can speed up and create a gust of wind. A lot of the wind that we hear in movies has been this artificial wind, just canvas being scraped against wood. But actually I discovered by accident another way to get wind. And that particular sound was used in the big toxic waste storm. Another classic device is the thunder sheet. It's a piece of sheet metal, and you can get a wonderful low-frequency rumble out of it. The thunder sheet is used a number of places.
I think one of the reasons Ben is so good at his job is because he's a true fan of sound design, and he's an avid historian.
He's always thinking and always working, and he's a total geek about sound.
It makes him just that much more knowledgeable about what are the options, you know, what has been done and what could be done that hasn't.
He's a bit like Mr. Wizard, you know, where you'd stop by his lab, he'd be like, "Oh, Angus, I'm glad you decided to show up. I'm working on the sound effect for Wally's treads, and I'm combining the sound of a chinchilla mating with a wildebeest driving a cement truck.
It was something new for us also at Pixar that we had a sound designer in-house on a film before post, you know.
It was a little funny at first for me when Andrew would start evaluating sounds that I was making. He would show up, and 5 or 6 a group would show up, and they'd all sit around, and I'd play one little sound of a door close and click, and everybody would think about it, and there'd be a discussion.
If it was a softer zip line kind of thing, maybe we could get away with keeping it in there. But I think whatever we end up in the final equation, we should let what his job is win out.
We're dealing with sound effects on our initial rough storyboard reels to a level of commentary and critique that I would usually wait for post-production.
That's a little too kazooey. You just want a more sort of almost Eve-like room, you know, kind of glow.
If that squeak sounds kind of sad and you never meant it to sound sad, it'll throw it that way. So you can't ignore it.
When Ben came on, he had to really figure out what's the overall language in this movie for these types of characters, and how does that fit into the overall soundscape that we're designing for the film.
I usually first think, if these objects, places, or robots, or machines really existed, what would they sound like? How would they be powered? What would be the actual physics of how they work? But if I find a sound isn't working within a scene, I'll abandon the science and go with what works emotionally.
He's so thoughtful about these things that he creates that really almost wouldn't need a logic, except that the only reason they are great is because they have a whole logic and backstory. It's what makes what he does feel real. It makes you believe it.
Wally has a multitude of motors, and he very deliberately picked out different sounds for each of these movements. And they can be orchestrated together to punctuate the emotions with sounds that are justifiable. It's part of his function.
And really, once he came on and started developing the core sound of Wally, we were just like, yes, you know, this is what we were looking for.
We've always tried to give Eve kind of very soothing, high-tech, quiet tonalities, almost like little bits of music. And there's a mystery, there's a sense of energy and enchantment with her, but it's kind of a soft kind of background kind of idea with sound, and it's emotional. All of them have an array of sounds that are character-based. The autopilot is filled with bells and whistles and many big motors, and he's multitasking like no other character. So there's always some sense of activity and calculating going on. With Mo, he's sort of a nervous little cleaning droid, so often he's revving his motor a little bit, like he's eager to do something else. You know, little snippets of sound that keep him frenetic. When you use sounds gathered in the outside world, the real world, and you bring them into a science fiction film, you get the credibility of those sounds to sell to the audience the reality of what's really just a very fantastic world. I heard a sound in an old war movie on TV. There was a private cranking a generator to provide power for an army radio in the field. I found one of these old army generators on eBay. And it's the sound we use for Wally when he has to be quiet in a given scene. He's not going very fast. When Wally gets going at high speed, additional sounds are added to his driving motors. And one of the principal elements comes from a device called the inertia starter, used to start the engine on an old airplane. And it's a classic sound, often used for the Roadrunner speeding up or the Tasmanian devil spinning in a circle. Creating sound effects is one task, but creating voices is the hardest task for me as a sound designer. Our audience is very sensitive to analyzing voices because we do it all day long, every day.
Aha! Ha!
Sound effects can function like a voice. Sound effects can be expressive. Another technique would be to start with the human performance and modulate a sound effect. The human performance is driving the shape of the twanging Jew's harp. Disney was also responsible for using one of the most innovative electronic tools for modifying the human voice. Back in the 1940s, the device was called the Sonavox. And this device involved playing a sound over a small pair of speakers. And a performer would hold the speakers against their throat.
The train sounds are all on here. And you hold these over your vocal cords and move your lips, like this. All aboard, clear the track. All aboard, let's go. Eve, Eve.
The voice of Eve is a modern example of the same technique. In this case, I'm using a device called a vocoder. And you can input into this device a human recording, a human voice at one end.
Go ahead.
In this case, it's Alyssa Knight.
Directivo. Directivo. Directivo.
I like that. And at the other side of the device, you can put in a tone,
Directivo. Directivo.
changing the performance and giving it electronic nuances.
Ivanka. Directive. Oh.
You wanted to have all the soul of a human being might have in the performance, but you wanted it to sound like the voices were synthesized, that they were coming from a machine. Wally's voice started with recordings I would make of myself. And then it's analyzed and broken up into its component parts within the computer. It changes the volume and pitch of the sound. And the tilt of the pen actually affects the way the sound is resynthesized in the computer. And I can add an additional level of performance to it that way.
Wally. Wally.
There was probably a year's worth of work.
No.
Until we really arrived at a set of sounds for the main characters that we felt comfortable with, that we had created a voice.
My editor, Steve Schaefer, and I would just go through and go, all right, we need something that sounds sad but slightly hopeful, you know? And then you would just go through all these sounds.
Wally. Wally.
I think the front half might work better. Yeah.
The more inventive sounds get, the more they become subjective, and they become sounds in the ears of the beholder. A ray gun, a force field, they're interchangeable. Most of these sounds are just so abstract that the ultimate judgment has to be in the hands of one person, and that is Andrew Stanton.
I want to take complete credit for having tracked down Ben Burtt and gotten him to say yes on this film, and that's about where it ends. And then the rest of the credit just goes to him for achieving the goal that I had thrown his way of making me not only believe, but like this whole cast of characters in this world.
The end result is a product which involved thousands, maybe tens of thousands of decisions, and certainly thousands of sounds. And all of these sounds add up to the world of Wally.
Okay, welcome back. So what, in Ben Burtt's opinion, makes for good sound design for animation? What are some of the ideas that he talks about that add realism and believability to WALL-E? Any thoughts?
I think one aspect that he mentions is like emotion,
Mm-hmm.
or like the tone at which the sound is expressed, or like how it affects the mood of the action.
Yep. So he says that sound effects can almost act like dialogue, right? They can carry an emotional weight to them. And in WALL-E, the dialogue is quite sparse for a majority of the film. So certain sounds are kind of, they stand in for talking, right? You can imagine, actually my daughter has this sound that means question, you know, so it's kind of like that. She has this word that says, huh? And that just means question, and it's almost like her own little sound effect, right? But we can imagine things that kind of go up at the end, or questioning, things that are higher pitch or happier, things that are lower pitch or maybe sadder. And so those kinds of ideas of tone change the way that we view things, right? What else? What does he say about believability? How do you create believability when you're adding sound to an animation?
I think he said something about logic. Like the sound has to have like logic behind it.
Mm-hmm. So he talks about internal logic systems, right? So that you can't just add like random sounds and expect it to create a believable universe, but rather it has to have some sort of logic, and it can be a very individual logic, right? But it has to be some kind of logic. What else does he say about believability? What's another way that sound can create credibility with an animation, or how do we borrow credibility using sound, according to Ben Burtt? Anyone remember?
Does it have to like go along with the action, or like happen at the right moment?
Yep, absolutely. That's a great point. It really has to happen at a precise moment, right? If you miss the mark of timing, then the sound is not necessarily going to be associated with the action that you want it to. One more thing I want to draw out of you. How does sound lend credibility, believability to an animation? I think it's like the easiest one, and you all just think it's too easy. Using real sounds, right, from the real world. So animations don't have sounds, right? When you're drawing, you all have this experience already of starting an animation, and your different Illustrator frames are not making any sound. So sounds that we associate in the everyday life with certain actions, bringing those in to an animation is going to lend a kind of credibility, right? So opening a door and hearing it creak, turning on a car and hearing an engine, depicting rain and hearing rain. Those kinds of things immediately will ground a viewer in a real life experience because they're things that we're familiar with. It becomes more challenging when it's something that doesn't exist at all. And that's where those kinds of systems of logic that he talks about can take over, right? There are so many things that happen in WALL-E that don't happen in everyday life. If they happen at all, some things don't happen at all. And in that case, you really have to think about what could that be? What could stand in or represent that action? Okay, what does he say about old Disney cartoons? What kinds of sounds did they use? Did anyone catch that? Alex?
he said that some of the older ones use actual musical instruments.
Mm-hmm. So rather than recreating these real sounds, although he also shows all these like amazing Foley props, right, from the Disney studio, that's like my favorite part. In another life, I would be like a Foley sound artist. I'm just so obsessed. Anyway, other than that, other than those props that try to recreate sounds in the studio, before, as Ben Burt said, he's worked in a time when he could go around with a portable recorder. And that's really a mid-20th century innovation in the 1960s that happens. But before that, people would either use musical tones or they would recreate things in the studio. And that's where I want to show you next. But before I do that, does anyone have any other questions or comments about this video? Anything else that you wanted to bring up or anything that you found confusing? One thing I do think this video kind of does a disservice representing is that Ben Burt did not do every single piece of sound design for WALL-E. It makes it seem like a one-man heroic event, but actually he was assuredly working with a team. And it's an incredibly long process. So when we're looking at Hollywood films, even ones that are not animation, even films that are live action, generally you'll have a team of people working on the sound, whether it is recording or adding in sound effects. Even live action films will actually have significant use of sound effects. A lot of things are added in for emphasis. And it's going to be a team of people that are working on it. It's not just like one dude with a lot of time on his hands. Okay, so now what I want to watch is a cartoon. I want to watch Hawaiian Holiday. This is an old Disney cartoon from 1937, and it makes use of the kind of techniques that you see Ben Burt talking about. So as you're watching, I want you to pay close attention to what kinds of sounds are being used for these different actions. How is it creating a logical structure for itself, given that it is fabricating all the sounds? Where are there real sounds? Where are there fabricated sounds? Where are there musical notes? How do you characterize those musical notes? So let's all do the same thing. We're gonna mute and turn off our cameras, watch this, think about those things, and then we'll come back and discuss. Oh, okay, you all are on it, bye. Okay, so what are some examples of the sound effects that are used for this animation? What are your favorites?
I noticed that for a lot of the animations where characters are running or even just walking, they use a lot of drums and percussion, particularly when Goofy was like running towards the beach. I noticed there's like a drum roll that was progressively getting faster.
Yep.
Another one of the musical ones is when Goofy is peeking out of the water and he's shaking the moisture out of his ears. It's a flute.
Anyone else?
I noticed that, like, you know that scene with the crab? Like, when that crab was, like, dangling off of Pluto's tail, it was, like, there was, like, a rattling kind of sound.
Yep.
Yeah, and also, like, when the crab, like, pinches Pluto, there's, like, a honking sound.
That's kind of like a classic Pluto sound, right? That honk. I think one thing that's very funny about that crab is for some reason it's Scottish, and it has like this bagpipe sound associated with it as they're kind of crab walking, you know, side by side. I don't know why, but it does seem to work, doesn't it? What else? What about some of the more realistic sounds? Did anyone pick up on those?
I think they kind of use some drum effects for the wave.
Yep. And we also hear some actual waves, right? Some water. Anyone else? So there's one sound effect that we hear, but we don't actually see it. It's what's called a non-diegetic sound, which means that there's nothing in the image that represents it. Is everyone familiar with this idea of diegetic? This is a term from film studies. So a diegetic sound is one that is motivated by something in the image. So for example, the difference would be if a character in a film, it's my own diegetic sound, but we can't see it, it's off screen. If a character in a film flipped on the radio and then we heard that song, whatever song was playing on the radio, that's a diegetic sound, right? It is motivated by something that happens in the film itself. But let's say a song was just playing over the scene, right? Setting the mood, setting the tone. That's a non-diegetic sound. There's nothing in the scene itself that's motivating that music. It's just added afterwards for effect. So there's a non-diegetic sound, something that is motivated by the action, that heightens the action, but has no visual representation in the film. Did anybody pick up on what that might be? It's a very dramatic sound, very dramatic scene. No, it's a hard question. Anyone notice any weird sounds when Daffy is caught on fire?
Oh, the fire alarm sounds.
Yep, we hear the fire, like a fire engine, right? We hear like a wee-oo, wee-oo alarm going off. So that's an example of non-realistic sound, right? There's not going to be a fire alarm going off. He doesn't have his like a smoke detector attached to his tail, but it adds to the humor of the piece, and it also helps to kind of establish what's going on. It's an emergency, and really heightens the drama of it all. Okay, any other examples that you all want to share, or any comments or questions about that cartoon? Little Saturday morning cartoons for your Thursday mornings. Okay, so what I want to look at.
I have one comment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
When the waves stopped, I liked how they used kind of like a car, like a car sound when you're like braking. It was kind of strange to have that with something that's fluid. It was really cool.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of that. Can you say it again?
It was interesting because it was something fluid, but then they were using a sound that's for something very solid. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, there were a lot of mechanical sounds I noticed and kind of mixed in with the waves. So I mean, there's the drums variably. There was some water, but then there is a part when Goofy is set flying, and then we hear kind of like an airplane sound. So there's a kind of a mix of different elements: musical, naturalistic, which would be the water, and then the more mechanical. So I think that's a really good point. Okay, actually, I'm realizing we're about an hour in, so maybe before we do one more, let's take a 10-minute break. And so I'll see you at 7 minutes after the hour, and we'll look at a bit more. Okay, she was very insistent on saying hi. So I've got 2 more videos for us to look at. And what I want us to look at now are how individual artists use sound with their animations. So it's not just these large-scale Hollywood productions, it's also individuals who are making these kinds of decisions. So this is a really short 2-minute piece, and I want you to, again, pay attention to what sound effects are used. Excuse me. So I'll see you back in 2 minutes. Okay, so what kinds of sounds did you notice were being used in this animation?
I feel like there are a lot of like different like mouth sounds to emulate some of the effects. Like I don't really know how, like I don't know, like the or something.
Right.
Like I feel like a lot of these sounds could be made using like the mouth or the voice or something.
Right. Okay. So when things are like popped into place, like when the hand like flicks something and it lands, and you hear like a. What else? What other sounds do we hear?
Sounds like they use like paper, like for like crumpling noises.
Mm-hmm. The paper sounds are really, really exaggerated, right? If you can imagine, or if we could demonstrate paper sliding over, it's quite quiet. And this is crinkly paper, that's smooth paper. So the sound of two pieces of paper rubbing up against each other is almost assuredly actually not that. But something else. I'm not positive what it is, but something that makes it seem much weightier than it actually is. What else?
Like when they're tapping their fingers onto the table, there's like those loud thumping noises. But also I think it's interesting that when they slide the paper across, it's a different noise from when they slide the mug across like the wooden surface.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good observation, right? Because different kinds of materials, when they're interacting, are going to have different resonances, right? So there's not just a sliding sound, which doesn't necessarily make sense unless maybe you're doing something musical like a flute. That might work as a sliding sound. But if you're going for any degree of realism, or if you're trying to mark off the difference between different materials, those have to be two totally distinct sounds. And I think the mug sound is maybe a little bit more realistic than the paper sound, right? I happen to have a mug handy as a prop. What else?
The cigarette spliff. It really exaggerated, like heavier breathing.
Yep. Right, really over the top. And then what about the fire?
I feel like it's like overlapping sound effects of paper crumpling.
Mm-hmm. It's got that kind of sparking sound, but again, not fire. We're not hearing fire. And did you notice anything about the water as well?
It seems like they use like actual water to emulate the water sounds.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely actual water, but I think it's like a ton of water actually, right? It sounds like a bath is being filled up or something, as opposed to some water splashing on the on a desk surface. So there's really this, the humor is punched up by these really exaggerated sounds, as well as this sort of exaggerated scenario. If you're smoking over your collage, which you shouldn't be doing either, you shouldn't be smoking to begin with, but if you're smoking over paper, it's not going to catch on fire in that way if you're blowing smoke onto it. So there's this exaggeration in the scenario, and then there's also this exaggeration that's matched in the sounds, especially like, I'm surprised nobody brought this up, the glue, the of the glue is just ridiculous. But also, I mean, I still think it's funny. I don't know about you all. Okay, any other comments or questions about this piece? Okay, so I have one more to show you. Let me grab that link. I didn't set it up. And I think this is a really good example. This is a piece by the artist Sabrina Rattay. And it is made using an analog computer animation system. And she works with her partner, Roger Tellier Craig, who is a musician in his own right. And it probably doesn't mean that much to you, but if you were my age, maybe you would think this was cool. He used to be part of Godspeed You, Black Emperor, and they had a million spin-off bands, which I don't really remember. He's a member of that group and several others, and still a practicing, Pan Am, still practicing musician. And they work together. She does the visuals, he does the sound. So he's bringing that kind of musical background to create a soundtrack for her for this piece. And I think it's a really good example of a system of logic. Again, these things do not have any sounds. Everything is like almost abstract. I think it will recall representational things for you all, but it is ultimately an abstract image. So think about what kind of system is developed over the course of this piece, and then you'll see a break. And how is that break represented in the audio as well as the visual? Okay, let's watch. Okay. So how does the video set up a kind of system of logic for these sounds?
It's repetitive. It uses the same sounds over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. That really allows us to kind of understand that certain actions have certain sounds, right? Whether it's na 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 na, or it's zoo, zoo, that happens over and over again. And this isn't cheating. This is actually creating a system. What else? Excuse me.
They like change the pitch or like how often the sound is like repeated over and over again to emulate like certain different effects.
Mm-hmm. How does the pitch change for different actions? Anyone pick
It's
up?
like I feel
Yeah,
like
go
it's like higher pitched in some parts and then lower pitched in others. Is it like a pipe or something?
Is what like a pipe? The sound? Or?
What the sounds are coming from, or like the original sound, I guess.
I assume it's a synth, but I don't quite know. The synthesizer. So how do those pitches change based on what's happening? Did anyone pick up on that?
I feel like when the thing is like being built up, it's a much lower pitch, but when it's being like built back down, it's like it's like a higher pitch, like it's being like, I don't know, shut down, I guess.
Mhm.
And then when it moves in different directions, it also seems to change pitch. So
And what about that break we were talking about? Did anybody pick up on that? What happens and what does it sound like? Something happens towards the end of the video. What is it? Maybe it's hard to describe.
Is it that everything just kind of fades off or something? Or are you talking about like the portal kind of seizure inducing thing towards
I'm talking about the portal seizure inducing thing.
Okay. I kind of forgot what sound it was.
Okay, someone else want to pick up where Liz left off? This thing opens, right? This portal, it almost looks like a projection, and we get a totally different color, right? Everything is grayscale, green, yellow, and then suddenly, bam, we have this kind of electric pink with some blues inside. What happens to the audio? We have this radical visual shift. What does the audio do?
It gets louder.
It does get louder. What are we hearing?
Like a static change. I'm not sure.
Anyone else? Anyone pick up what it is? I think it's a fairly recognizable sound. It's like the only recognizable sound, maybe.
This might just be me, but it kind of sounds like a motor.
Exactly. That's exactly. It sounds like a motorcycle or a motor revving. And it almost sounds as though that's the sound of this thing being generated, right? And it's really a radical shift because we have something mechanical. We have this mechanical sound, whereas we've had previously and subsequently all of these synthetic sounds, right? So it's really a visual shift and an audio shift all at once to indicate this culmination or this climax to the piece. I'm curious, did you all like this piece? Or what are your thoughts on it? You can be honest. I'm just curious.
It gave me a headache.
I can tell by your expressions. Julia, you go ahead.
I have a headache right here now. Like right here. I don't know why it's there, but it hurts.
I'm sorry. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Anyone?
I feel like there should have been like a warning about like the portal in the middle, but I do like the colors of it. I just feel like it could like potentially hurt your eyes.
Oh, just wait until we get further into the
The
smoke.
sound was making my dog go crazy.
Really? I was curious if it would go, students don't like this piece, but I show it anyway because I think it's, because I like it. And also because I think it is like a really good example of creating a kind of very complete sound logical system. And I wondered if maybe on your own systems, on your headphones, rather than me blaring it on like the classroom speakers, which is what I would normally do, so you can all be happy that you were spared that experience. If it would go over better, but no. But I think actually it can be, and maybe you'll disagree with me, or maybe you'll agree with me later in your life. But I think actually watching stuff that is atonal, that is sometimes even abrasive, things that are not just pleasant, is actually really instructive and important, especially as artists, right? Not everything can just be, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. That's incredibly boring. So that's why I make you watch it, even though I know students don't like it. Okay, so that's the last piece I have for you all. I want to open it up again to any questions you might have about the assignment or any trouble you had technically. Anything you might need help with. Yeah, Julia, go ahead.
I noticed on Canvas, it says it's like we don't have access or something. Like the Canvas link, it just says like there's an error or something.
For what?
For the assignment. Hold on, let me pull it up.
Oh. Okay.
It like
Yeah,
does
for the square information, there's an error, and then there was some part that was like, this is part of like a locked module.
Yeah, like we can't submit anything on it.
Can you read it? No, or no?
Hold on. There's a little clipboard with like a blank face and it says no content. And then it says availability dates with a locked calendar, and the attempt number 1 is unavailable.
Okay, hold on, I'm looking. So wait, so you can't read the assignment?
No, there's no information. There's no way for us even to submit anything.
Oh crap, I'm sorry. Oh, it says October 1st. Why does it say that? Oh. Okay, let me fix that right now. Let me figure out how to fix that. Oh, it's due October 1st. Okay, that seems right. Okay, I don't know why that is. Let me look into it. And then also I have it as a Google Doc. So just so you have access to it right away. Let me send that to you. It might have the wrong dates in it. No, it has the right dates in it. So I won't even, is everyone experiencing the same thing, or do other people have access to it? Everybody's experiencing the same thing. Okay, I have to figure out, I don't know why that is, but I will fix it. Thank you for letting me know. I wonder if my other class had the same problem.
Yeah, on the mobile app for Canvas, it says that this assignment is part of an unpublished module and is not available yet.
Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Maybe, no, that's published. All the modules are published. Stupid Canvas. Oh, no, it's not published. Okay, that should be fixed now. Sorry about that. I don't know if somebody can confirm that you can see it now, but I think I fixed it.
Yeah, it's there now.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, any other technical problems that I did not create that maybe needs to be addressed? Everyone do okay with the pen tool? I know it's a hurdle.
I had a hard time with it at first, but I just like, but honestly, the pen tool game kind of made it like, kind of helped me figure it out, actually. Like, I didn't really think it was necessary, but then I was like, maybe I'll just try it out. And then I just sort of got the hang of it.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear it. The pen tool game is my attempt at making it less painful. Any questions? Nothing? Okay. Well, then that's all we have to do. So in the async time, I have 2 demos. One is really short. It's just about getting those frames into Premiere. So I already covered how to get the frames out of Illustrator, but there is a special particular technique to getting them into Premiere. So make sure you watch that. And then I also have a demo about doing our own sound design for animation. And what I'd like you all to do is there's an in-class assignment, actually, which we should go over and we should make sure that it's visible to you all. Yes, published. In-class assignment where you will do your own sound design for animation. Let me share my screen and we can go over this. What I've done is there is this old Disney cartoon. It's a Silly Symphony. You'll have a chance to see it in the demo, and I'll do a little bit of sound design to start us off. And I've stripped it of sound. So what you all have to do is choose a very short segment, and really it should be short. I'm not asking for you all to do the whole thing. God help us, that would take a month. So really something very short, 5 seconds. It could even be less depending upon how much, how much attention you're paying to that particular segment. And I want you to add the sound effects back in. You should aim for density rather than length. So really you want to think about every single element that could potentially have a sound effect. I've provided a link to the BBC Sound Effects library, which you can use. It's amazing, actually. It's a great resource, and it's a lot of really good sounds. And you can also supplement by downloading sounds from the internet. However, if you have a preferred way of doing it, there's also a website called Free Sounds, which you're welcome to make use of. You don't have to do that. You can rely solely on the BBC library. It's whatever is better for you, whatever you prefer. And you should spend about an hour working on it. So it's an in-class assignment. Take about an hour to gather your sounds, add them to the end, think about which section you want, add them to the animation, and do that segment and then export. One thing you'll notice about the BBC library is because I'm sharing it with you all on the cloud, it's all zipped up in an RAR file. And so I have also provided you, if you're a Mac user, this is an unusual file type. If you're a PC user, I think you should be able to just open it without a problem. Excuse me, oh my goodness. So I've also provided you with an app that you can download, and it will unzip it for you. It's basically just a zip file of a different name. So that's a little bit of a barrier to using it. Okay, things to consider. How do you bring the scene to life with environmental sounds and sounds that are tied to action? How does sound change the way we view the video? How can sound emphasize action? How can we add sounds to things and actions that don't exist in real life? So really all the different kinds of questions that I hope you'll also ask for Square Transformation as you finish that out this week and add in a soundtrack. The requirements, approximately a 5-second clip. That's vague. It's really, you should spend about an hour, whatever you kind of end up with is fine. You should try for a density of sound effects. So don't have like one sound effect, 5 seconds of silence, another sound effect. Everything should be tight and close together. Choose a particular scene and do it, intensely. And then export as an H.264 MP4 file. You'll notice that I don't say HD sized because the original video is not HD sized, and there are instructions in the demo about how to best deal with that. This is an in-class assignment due the same day as class, so you should do it now after you watch the demo. Please upload the assignment to Canvas and to Slack using the paperclip button. Compare and discuss your sound designs with your cohort. So one thing you'll notice is that even if you end up choosing the same scene, which a lot of people do because I demonstrate the beginning of the animation, and so many people use that, start there and work from there. You don't have to, you can choose any portion that strikes your fancy. But you'll see that even if you choose the exact same portion of the video as the other members of your cohort, your sound design is going to be totally different. It's very rare to see even the same sound necessarily used, except maybe the owl sound, because the BBC has like one owl sound. So it's very interesting to see how other people approach it. And you could have a lot of fun with this, right? It's a cartoon, it's a silly symphony. You can use sounds that are logical, or you can use sounds that are outlandish. You can do whatever you'd like with it, but spend some time, develop environmental sounds, develop sounds for the actions, and really give it a go, because this experience will help you when you go to finish up your Square transformation. Okay, any questions about this? Okay, then the other thing that I want you to do with your cohort is to share your Square transformation work in progress, whether that is just it should at this point just be your frames. And I'd like you to also upload those to Slack so that I can see where you're at as well and offer my feedback. So share that and do a little critique with your cohort. Help each other out. Maybe everything's happening too centrally. Maybe there's not enough going on in the frame, whatever it might be. Offer some feedback to your peers.
So when you say share them in the Slack, do you want us to upload all of the pictures individually, or just take a screenshot of all the frames sort of in one picture and just put that in there?
Oh, either way, actually, I hadn't thought about doing a screenshot, but that might be easier for you all to do that. But either way is fine, whatever is, as long as you're sharing the work and it's legible to other people, myself included.
So should we put it in the general chat, or is there a specific area we should put it in?
Put in your cohort chat.
Cohort, all right, perfect.
So you can share in your cohort, and then you can discuss however you all have set up to discuss.
All right, cool.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna get out of the screen share. Anyone have any questions about the in-class assignment, the regular assignment, or what you should be doing in your cohorts? Okay, if you find that anything is not working or not available to you, please feel free to let me know and I will fix it ASAP. I'm really sorry that you didn't have access to the assignment. I hope that didn't throw you all off. And otherwise, I'll see you on the Slack. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.